Joel Klatt, there's a chance Colorado is competing to go to the Big 12 championship game this year. There's a scenario, says Klatt, where Shedeur Sanders, if he's healthy, and they maintain some of that health with guys on the outside, Travis Hunter, I think, is one of the best overall players in college football. There's a chance that Colorado's competing to go to the Big 12 championship game this year. Joel Klatt, Colorado alum, says that about his Buffaloes. You feel totally opposite of that.
I do. Again, if all these transfer guys come together, then maybe it's one thing. But even going back to Colorado early last year, they were winning games. If some of those go sideways, that TCU game, that was a back and forth. If they would have lost that, it's a little bit different. People would have been like, oh, that's a moral victory.
Should have lost Colorado State. I thought Nebraska was a winnable game for the Cornhuskers.
Can we just go best case scenario with them and see if what you think is the most optimistic scenario?
And I'm not going to challenge. Joel obviously knows a lot more than we do. I just think the schedule is really difficult for Colorado, and I just don't know if Shedeur, with the way he was hit last year, is he going to be able to take that again this year?
Yeah, that's what the chat room is asking. Who blocks for Shedeur?
Yeah, he was running for his life.
You're relying on one of the best offensive tackles out of the high school ranks, one of the highest, a five-star guy. They signed that guy, but is a five-star tackle that's 18 years old that's never played at this level. We saw Caden Proctor last year surrounded by other really good linemen struggle.
If you're super optimistic for Colorado, you've got them 5-0 going into the bye week. That gives them a home win over North Dakota State on the first Thursday night. Now, I'm saying super optimistic, Lance. At Nebraska, if they can't be 5-0 right here, they're not going to win the Big 12. That's my point.
But boy,
at Nebraska week 2, at Colorado State week 3, Baylor for homecoming week 4, and in Orlando at the Bounce House week 5 against Central Florida. My point there is, that is super optimistic 5-0. But if they're not 5-0 right there, how do you win the Big 12? You think it'll be 5-0?
More 0-5 than 5-0.
Oh, okay,
closer to 0-5 than 5-0.
I would say if you go 3-2 in those 5, you should be happy if you're Colorado.
Yeah, but if you're 3-2, you've almost assuredly lost a Big 12 game already.
September 28th in Orlando, and Andrew brings this up. Andrew, UCF, zero chance they win in 200% humidity at UCF.
That would be a tough spot for them.
Their 22 is okay.
Yeah,
but their second stringers are not. And 200% humidity.
Yeah, I think North Dakota State is a toss-up game for them. At Nebraska, they're an underdog. That would be a monumentally good win for them. At Colorado State, it's a team that almost beat them last year.
I think they beat Colorado State on the road. I'll give them that win.
Baylor, that's certainly a winnable game.
It is a must-win for David.
I'll tell you, and Klatt, I know he never factors in Vegas, but 1,000% they're going to be underdogs at least in 8 games.
Yeah. But then once you get past that bye week, even if you're super optimistic and they're 5-0, Kansas State at home,
would be a terrible loss for Chris Klieman.
It would be an awful loss for Chris Klieman. Then you're at Arizona with Noah Fafita back. I think Arizona's still going to be a pretty good team, even though they lost Jed Fish to Washington.
And by the way, it seems like everybody left Arizona, including the coach, but apparently everyone I respect continues to say Arizona's still going to be pretty good.
I don't think they're going to fall off the face of the earth. Yeah. Keep in mind, you remember they had all those seniors that were coming back to play this one more year, right? They're going to be an experienced team. Cincinnati is a tough game. But then after that bye week, where are your wins after the bye week? So if you're even in the Big 12 hunt, and you got your last 4 games at Texas Tech, Utah at home, at Kansas, and Oak State at home?
No chance those last 3.
Where are your wins right there? Y'all give me your wins right there.
I don't see them. That's why I said 2-10.
If you're going to play for the Pac-12, you're probably going to have to be 3-1 in that stretch, and you're on the road in Lubbock, which is a tough place to play. You're hosting Utah, which might be the best team in your league. You're at Kansas, who I think is going to be a sneaky good team in the Big 12.
Could be the best team.
Yeah, and then Oak State, who's probably could be the best team.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't think they get a break on this Big 12 schedule from anybody.
You're playing the 4 best teams in the conference: Kansas State, Utah, Kansas, and Oak State.
And I think Texas Tech on the road.
Yeah.
Central Florida on the road.
Yeah, I do not see it. Even if I'm the most optimistic person about Colorado, it's still hard for me to paint the picture that they are playing for a conference championship.
I think it's a great year if they're 5-7.
I don't necessarily disagree with you. I think, and I said this last year about prime time, if he got them to a bowl game last year, I think he should be coach of the year. And I'll say it again. If he gets them to a bowl game this year, I think you got to consider him for coach of the year. I'm not playing here. I think you really have to consider him.
It sounds crazy, but degree of difficulty for Colorado and where they are is almost the same as Florida, as how difficult Florida's schedule is.
Kind of agree.
I mean, if I ask you right now, how good do you feel if I'm like, who has more wins, Colorado or Florida?
I'd go Florida. I wouldn't feel great about it.
I saw Siskey on McCready and Siskey repeat what we said back the last time we talked about Colorado, that we think this is Deion's last year. And Siskey, who is tied to coaching people all over the sport, if I remember correctly in the episode I was watching, he too believes Deion doesn't coach there next year.
I mean, I'm inclined to think he doesn't because of the kids. I mean, I think that's a contributing factor, right? Neither one of his kids will still be around next year in all likelihood. I mean, I guess that assumes Shedeur goes pro, right? He would still have eligibility left, but he'd have to go pro. I just have always assumed once his kids move on, he moves on to something else. I don't know what it'll be. But I tell you what, if he goes 6-6 or 7-5, he might get another job out of that.
I think if he goes 2-10, he still keeps his job just because Colorado, what they've got invested.
They're not going to fire him. There's too much publicity for them to fire him. But well, I tell you what, you go side by side with that Colorado and Florida schedule. I don't know, gun to head, I don't know which one I'd be more confident in getting more wins. I would pick Florida, but I'm not confident.
Yeah, I'm not either. Like, I feel Florida's going to get 3 or 4.
I think Florida would beat Colorado if they played each other. I'll start with that.
Yeah,
right?
I would agree with that. Now, give Colorado Florida's schedule.
Oh, Lance, are you kidding me?
I mean, they beat Sanford, but that's it.
I think they're a one-win team.
Yeah.
I mean, they still got their common would be Central Florida, where they're both are going to have to play them. I don't see a whole lot of wins if they play Florida's schedule.
We need to get Klatt on just to let him explain a little bit. I mean, he obviously, I'm sure he's been on campus. I'm sure he's talked to Deion. I'm sure he's seen these guys, but boy, it's hard to believe.
Ballfan205 says Bruce Feldman thinks they win 8 games.
Oh, I saw that, yeah. I think they're the most polarizing team right now in college football. There's people that think they're going to be good with a lot of the portal guys he's brought in.
If you force me to find 8 wins on that schedule,
I couldn't do it.
If you force me to find 8, if you're like, Ryan, your life depends on 8 wins on this schedule.
Colorado.
On Colorado. That's who we're talking about, right? North Dakota State. I may come back to some of these.
No, you've got to go 5-0 like you said.
North Dakota State, Colorado State, Baylor.
Those are must wins. Cincinnati. I'm just going to give you Cincinnati. That's
Arizona,
5.
Cincinnati, Texas Tech. You can't find 8.
It's hard. I mean,
it's impossible.
It's going to require them to either win one of these games at Central Florida, Kansas State at home, Utah at home, at Kansas or Oklahoma State, right?
No, if we had if our full screen was a big monitor behind, I'd walk over and I would take the Kansas State on the end of the top row and the 3 in a row down at the bottom of Utah, Kansas, and Oklahoma State to end the year. Those 4, there's no chance. So you have to win the rest of them. To be 8-4.
If Deion in his prime was playing for this team,
I still don't think they'd win that many games.
I think he would steal them a couple of games, but boy, I think 4-8 is your best case.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to find 8 wins there, that is so tough.